No, it's not actually a video. Hi guys, again. My name is Anna. I'm the owner of the vlog, The Typical Life of Military Wife. There you go. And this is the next episode. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the anxiety and panic attacks. So for 2 weeks now straight, I wasn't posting nothing because I was dealing with some mental problems, depression, basically changing jobs, and my husband is away still for training, so that accumulate, and you finally get that meltdown, depression, that you feel like crap. So I was dealing with that. Now I'm fine, thanks to my friend. Meet my friend Callie.
Hey guys.
She's the owner of the marketing business called Birch and Co. If I'm saying correct.
Birch and Co. Marketing.
Awesome. And how long are you running?
So we've been in business for about 2 years now. I've been in the marketing industry for way longer than that, but we decided to go out on our own a couple years ago, and it's been crazy. It's been good.
That's good. And you said it was 2 years now when it's basically established, and you guys just opened in Nashville.
Yeah. So we have our headquarters is in Tampa, and then in June we opened a second location in Nashville. So it's been a busy 2 years. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm happy for you. And I brought you today because you had some experience in life, since I have similar. Maybe not that close to each other, but close in the meaning of it.
Yeah.
So what was your, with what have you been doing in your life?
Sure, yeah. So, I'll give you a quick background. So when my husband and I got married, which has been about 4 years now, I learned very quickly that I don't do well with life change, which maybe isn't the best thing for a business owner to say, but life change is kind of a trigger point for my anxiety. So we got married, and within like weeks of getting married, I started having crazy panic attacks. And I didn't want to tell my husband, Ryan, about it, because I had this image in my head of what a first year of marriage should be. And my anxiety didn't really have a place in what that image looked like. And so I was like, oh, this is just going to pass. Like, it's going to be fine. I am going to white knuckle my way through this because I'm a type A personality. So I was like, it's fine. I got this. And so it very quickly progressed because anyone who has anxiety, you know that you can't just like push yourself through it usually. So the more that I would try to push my way through it and push myself into being okay, the more that I got like tensed up and just more and more anxious. And it got to the point where Ryan would go to work. I was working from home at the time. Ryan would go to work and I would just like sit in a scalding shower and just cry like for hours. And like he had no idea what was going on, because as soon as he came home, I would like flip a switch and I'd be like, okay, honey, like dinner's on the table. We got this. And it was like probably a little Stepford Wivesy, like looking back on it. But yeah, like I did not want to let him know how crazy things had gotten. And it was all because I felt like I had entered this stage in life where I didn't have any safety nets. Like I was married, I had a career, I was out of college. And so I felt like, okay, like I have to make my life everything that I think it should be. And I mean, any adult knows that life doesn't go according to plan. And so, yeah, like any of those gray areas or where things kind of didn't go the way I thought they should go, like sent me into a spiral. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I actually got to a point where I thought about killing myself. And I don't say that lightly, but I remember I had this one friend in church. She's actually our pastor's wife, which is a very close friend of mine, Nicole. And she has been very open about her journey with depression and anxiety. And I think you're actually talking with them next.
Yes, I'll
spoiler
be talking.
alert.
Spoiler
that one's
alert,
coming.
yes. So our pastor, since I mentioned, I think in the episode second, about connecting with the church. And that's the person who introduced me to actually that church. And I'll be doing a video with Pastor Brian and talking with him a little bit about his role, and actually bringing up a little bit the subject of anxiety too, and basically mental problems, because mental problems right now are like the big society thing that we need to deal with, and not just like going to a therapist, but how to open and talk to other people, like husband, boyfriend, family members, and explain to them what's going on.
Yeah, and that's going to be a fantastic episode. Brian and Nicole sat down with Ryan and I several times during our journey of dealing with me and my anxiety, and I mean, I don't say this lightly at all, but they very much like saved our marriage. And they definitely saved my life. But so I got to a point where I was thinking about killing myself. And I remember I went to this, it was an Easter Sunday, and Bryant had done this message about like hope and resurrection from like the dead parts of our life. And I thought, well, everything in me feels dead right now, so I could use a little resurrection. And I like broke down sobbing. And actually, it's crazy. My husband, I can remember the day, he was wearing a blue V-neck shirt, like a blue V-neck t-shirt. And I walked out of church sobbing hysterically, like not like normal, like emotional crying, like if you hear a good sermon, but I mean like I was, like my mind snapped and I was gone. Like I was mentally gone.
Mental breakdown, basically.
Yes, yeah. I had hit my mental max, and I was sobbing, and I walked out to our car and realized that I didn't have our keys because Ryan drove. I don't know what I was going to do, drive away, I don't know. But I didn't have the keys, thank God. And so I sat down on the ground. It's just like a dirt parking lot. So I sat down in the dirt in my Easter dress, and just sobbed. And Ryan like came running out of the church and found me, and I cried into that shirt. And to this day, that shirt still has this huge mascara stain on the chest. And he like, it's hanging up. I can show you. He won't get rid of it though, because that was and I keep telling him like, please get rid of that shirt. We both know exactly what that shirt is. And he won't, because that was a key moment, because that was the moment that I realized if I didn't get help right then, like Ryan and I were done, and I was probably going to be done. And so Nicole came out and talked to us. She gave us a number for a therapist that she had been seeing for years. And so I started going. And when I first went, I thought, well, you know, I'm just like, I didn't think that I was going to get any help. I thought, I've been like this. It had been about a year into our marriage when this happened. So it's not like this was, you know, a slow or a short process. Like I had been a year down this road of just losing my mind. So when I went into therapy, I didn't think it was going to work. And I went in for two reasons. I thought, well, you know, Ryan deserves a little bit of happiness, so I'll go in for him and try to learn how to deal with this. And the other reason is if I do actually decide to kill myself, at least I'll have gone through therapy and tried everything first. Like at least, you know. And so that was my mindset. And so we went, and it was the most liberating thing I have ever experienced. And like, it wasn't liberating the first time. It wasn't even liberating the first month. Like my first session, I swear to you, my therapist, Lydia, like there's no way she understood anything I was saying through the sobs. Like, I think I just laid on her couch and cried. But even that in itself, like the ability to just finally let out the crazy was amazing. But so for several months, I mean, when I first went in there, she was like, you need to come back every week. Like you are in some serious trouble here. And so we went back, and like Ryan, I would call Ryan as soon as I would get out of therapy, and I would tell him everything that we went through so that he would know how to identify what I was walking through, what my triggers were. And then when I eventually got to a place where I started getting a little steadier and healthier, he started coming to my therapy sessions with me. And so Lydia would talk to him, and, you know, he made sure it was okay with me before, you know, but I wanted him there because as my husband, he needed to know what my triggers in life were, and he needed to know how to identify
and to respond to it.
And how to help me if I find myself in a situation that's triggering my anxiety, how to help me out of it. And I mean, it's been, I have fortunately, and this is not the case for everybody, I have been fortunate enough to not have to go back to therapy for about a year now. I haven't been back. I've been doing really good. It's a great season in life. I may have to go back later, and that's fine. We've accepted this, that this is always going to be something that's in the background of my life.
Comes and goes right now,
Absolutely.
But it's stable at that point.
Yes, right now we're in a season of stability, and it is lovely. But even in these seasons, one of the reasons that we're able to be in a season of stability for this long is because there have been a few occasions where Ryan has seen a trigger before I see it, and he navigates us out of it. So like even something as simple as like TV shows, like there are certain triggers in TV shows that if I see it, it will start like firing off anxiety in my head. And so he like navigates around stuff sometimes, and I don't even know about it until afterward. But that's why it's so important when you're walking through this to communicate to a family member, a friend, a spouse, like whoever that close person is, because if Ryan hadn't walked through that with me, I would not be as stable and healthy as I am now.
Well, I heard the way, like, when people are reacting or behaving, but never heard actually about the TV shows. That's actually pretty
So
new for me.
there's a few that get me, like, I can't watch 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah,
like the whole suicide thing.
It's a good show. I honestly watched it because it reflected a little bit. Maybe it's not the same one I had, but like I mentioned, I was bullied for 11 years, and it was mostly at school from elementary till the
So you
first
probably
high
related
school.
a lot to that.
So yeah, it is related,
Yeah.
but my second high school, I went to the school when they put me through a lot of like a group sessions. So we've been talking with each other what is going on with us. If we had like very personal subject, we will be meeting one-on-one or two-on-one, which is a psychologist and like a teacher in class to tell them what's going on.
That's really good, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually really helpful because I was a very close person. Like looking at it, like meeting me now, 2 years ago, and comparing me 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like you could never tell that I'm the person who had a problem to approach people. Like I still have a problem to talk in front of like 30 people standing, and I need to tell them. I will still have like shaking
like
not that, but voice shaking and not give a constructive response to it, and you can see that I'm like shivering a little bit. That's my reaction because of one of the teachers who wanted me to stand up in front of almost 30 people and respond to it, and I was like running away to the bathroom because I feel nauseous, like almost passing out. And when I was away, I was fine. That was one of the reaction out till this day I had. But
so probably with that show, you related to a lot of the portions of it with the bullying.
Yes, but the show is way darker. Like it goes way darker. But
which is why I can't watch it.
Yes, but I ended to the way that I was writing. My option when actually my mom noticed that it's a problem, that I was drawing black, I think, crayon crosses and crying kids. Like she had a trigger that something is not right.
Sure.
And I can honestly see that I could draw something or starting to write it like something negative, and that triggers me later on.
Interesting.
Yes.
See, everybody's got trigger points.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's one of the biggest ways, it's at least the first step to getting mentally healthy, is to, one, recognize that there is an issue. So don't try to white knuckle it like I did. That doesn't help anything.
Don't hold it long in the body, because finally you'll explode, and it can go through your family, through your friends, or somebody else. You just want, if you see that it's a problem coming up and it's repeating problem, and finally you're starting to the point that you cannot handle that, don't go through decisions that we both went, but she was more thinking about it. I did. So that's a little bit of small difference between that, and they're different two subjects, what was going on. But if you're noticing that something is going on, the same pattern, decide to talk with somebody, if it's going to be even a family member or a friend or a therapist at school, or even a teacher, and you're starting to have mental problems that you're noticing, or somebody next to you has that, better to inform and even have that person pissed at you that you said something, instead of having them do something bad to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, like, a lot of times, unless that person has identified that they have an issue, they may just think like, oh, I'm just in a bad season, I'm just in a something. But it's when somebody from the outside speaks truth into that. So like for me, it was when Nicole came and found me in the parking lot and was like, hey, I think you have something, like, I think that there's a mental health issue here. And she said it kindly, but like she just said it the way it is. And if anyone watching knows Nicole, then she says it like it is. And she was just like, hey, I think there's an issue here and you need to get some help. And that was when I realized, like, and I was so silly about it, because of course everyone on the outside could see it, but for whatever reason I thought, oh, I'm hiding this so well.
When you're hiding, you're showing more symptoms of that.
Yeah, and I was making it worse, but it was when Nicole spoke into it that I was like, well, I guess I'm not hiding this well, and if she can see it, then probably everybody can see it. And that, like, in a weird way, like, it made it real to me. And that's what kind of catapulted me getting help. But
and what was, you mentioned that you had your triggers, that it was putting that on, and you said it, TV shows, and you've been going to the bathroom, like take a shower, but you've been crying. What different symptoms that you could say that it it came up that perhaps or Ryan or Nicole or even Brian noticed that? Like, what was it, if you recall them?
Yeah, so do you mean like what were my triggers or what were my symptoms?
Symptoms, yes, you're right, symptoms, yes.
Okay, so for me, the way my mind works is I have, if I get too far gone in my anxiety path, so sometimes I can feel a little bit of anxiety because I think that's normal in life. Like, there are situations that make you anxious about outcomes. That's normal life anxiety. Sometimes if the anxiety stays too long, or for me specifically, like because I am a type A personality, which means that I am 110% all of the time, one direction, and I don't understand things that I can't control. Frankly, I believe I can control everything. I know it's not true, but I like to believe it's this superwoman complex, right? So I recognize my faults. But I have this underlying complex that I fight against. But so for me, it's if something feels too far out of control, and it's going to affect somebody else. So, for example, if my marriage goes off the rails, which fortunately we have a fantastic marriage, so I don't really have to worry about that one. But if I see us going off the rails in an area, I'm like, okay, this is not only going to derail me, but it's going to take Ryan out too, and I love him, so I don't want that to happen. So I like get super like control over it, and or like the business, right? Like, so if I see like there's an area where the business is looking a little wonky, and I'm like, this doesn't just affect me, this affects all of my employees, like I get super control over it. And so if there are situations that I feel like I'm losing control, my mind goes to what's called catastrophic thoughts. And so that's where like you play out worst case scenario, but it's not like normal worst case scenario. It's like worst case scenario that would never even realistically happen. And so like a lot of times it's like worst fears. So like Lydia was explaining to me one time, like, and this is not one of my catastrophic thoughts, but she was saying in an example that, it's always the opposite of what you would actually believe. So she said, for example, that she will get new moms in to see her. Lydia is my therapist. She said that she'll get new moms in, who are having like postpartum depression, or, you know, they're going through some kind of, anxiety related to having a child. And they will come in because they're having catastrophic thoughts of like hurting their baby. And it makes them so, like the thoughts are so disturbing to them that they get physically sick, and they just can't stop vomiting. And so she says that it's a lack of control. And so you're constantly thinking through like, what's the worst thing that could happen, until that worst thing takes on a life of its own. And you can't not think about it. But she said that it's usually the opposite of anything you would ever do. So like the moms who come in who are worried about harming their babies, or that they're having catastrophic thoughts about harming their babies, she's like, those moms are never going to harm their babies because they are so disgusted even by the thought of anything hurting their child that they're vomiting. So they're not actually wanting to hurt their baby.
But it's just a thought coming.
It's a thought, and they're so upset about the thought that thought would even enter their minds. They're so upset about it and appalled by it that they can't stop getting sick. And so that's kind of what a catastrophic thought is. That's an extreme version. But it's like, it's an intrusive thought, which we all have, of like, whew, wouldn't that be crazy if, right? Like, we all have those thoughts. But it's when that thought happens, instead of just being like, whew, that would be crazy if, it's, oh shit, what if that really does happen? And then you just go down that rabbit hole to the point where you can't come back out. And then it starts really feeling like it will happen, which is highly disturbing. So
actually, when you mentioned it, I started to think about like my, life experience when I started to cut myself and thinking, on the beginning, what if that, could happen actually, and to the point that I couldn't stand that. It was like, maybe that's the only way to go with life.
Right. So it becomes this obsessive, catastrophic thought that you can't get rid of. And so, like, for example, I'll share one of mine, which, obviously there are no judgments in this video. We're all just trying to help people.
You don't have to if you don't want to. If you want to,
okay.
Go ahead.
It was, it's looking back on it now because, Ryan and I are in such a healthy place. And, I mean, you've met Ryan. He's, like, the nicest guy in the world and
That's
super
true.
non-confrontational. So it seems funny that this was even a thought on the other side of it. But I remember when I was going through this, one of my really anxious stages, I had read this story about, like, this husband who killed his wife. which is like the worst thing for me to read ever. I didn't even mean to read it, but it popped up on my newsfeed, so of course I read it. And like, I didn't think anything of it because I didn't think anything of it. Like, wow, that sucks. It's a terrible story, but okay. And then I went to bed that night, and like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I was like, what if Ryan tries to kill, right? Like, no, it's funny now because you know Ryan. Like, that's so ridiculous.
I mean, I know that, but at the same time, knowing that you could have those kind of thoughts, I'll be like, just throw that book or your phone somewhere.
I know. Ryan was like, why did you even read that? Like, why would you do that to yourself? So anyway, I was like, oh my God, what if Ryan, like, tries to kill me? Like, what if this happens? Which was ridiculous. But then I was so upset about that thought. But when you get in these catastrophic thoughts, it's muscle memory. So it's the same, Lydia describes it as the same thought patterns as an addiction. So people who are triggered by something and go, you know, they have an alcohol addiction, they have a drug addiction, catastrophic thoughts are an addiction. It's the same triggers and emotional triggers in your mind. So I would go down that thought, and this was before I had a handle on it. So I would go down that thought, and I wouldn't know how to get out of it. And so that quickly turned into, you know, oh my God, what if Ryan kills me, to what if I just believe that, like, what if I think this so much that I become paranoid that he's trying to kill me and I accidentally hurt him even though he hasn't done anything, right? And then I went to Lydia's office because I'm like, this shit's getting crazy. So we got it sorted out, but that's what a catastrophic thought is. And like, you know, we can laugh about it now. And I mean, sweet Ryan, like, he just walked me through it, and I'd be like, are you going to kill me? And he's like, nope, not going to kill you. And I'm like, I just need to go see Lydia. But
you can see fun in the video too.
I mean, but the thing to take away from this all is that there is hope on the other side of it. You will eventually, if you're walking through this season, if you get the right help, if you take the right steps, you will be able to look back at these thoughts and be like, okay, that was a little crazy. That was not my finest season, but we're on the other side of it now.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just...
No, it's okay. I mean, like, even Ryan and I have a good laugh about some of our catastrophic thoughts, and I will tell you one thing, that there is, I mean, like, Lydia told us when Ryan and I first went through therapy with her, and Bryant and Nicole told us the same thing. She said, if you guys come out on the other side of this, you will have a trauma bond that will be unbreakable in your marriage. And I didn't understand what she meant at the time because I didn't really understand a lot of what anything meant at the time. But looking back on it, I had to be 100% transparent with Ryan about every crazy thing that entered my head. It was literally, if a thought popped in, it was coming out of my mouth to him, because if it did not come out, it was going to rattle around up here and drive me crazy. And so, like, and some of the stuff I thought was insane. It was just insane. I had no control over where my head was. And so, and he took it with such grace. Like, he never judged me for it. He always separated the anxiety from me. And we walked through some crazy stuff together our first year, and he never once judged me. He never made me feel like I was crazy. He never did. Like, he was just
there for you, supporting you.
He was amazing. And out of that, we did create this, like, trauma bond where we were forced to know each other on, like, I think one of the deepest levels imaginable. Lydia related it to, like, someone who goes through, like to survivors of 9/11. She's like, if you survive 9/11 with somebody, you're going to walk out of there with the trauma bonds. And even if you didn't know them ahead of time, because you survived such a traumatic moment with them, you'll be connected to them for the rest of your life. And that's, like, I mean, Ryan and I built that. And so I never would have chosen my anxiety, but I would never go back and unchange it. Like, I would pick it 100 times over.
Some things are happening for some reason.
Absolutely. Like, I would never have chosen it on the front side, but knowing what I know now, knowing that there is an out, that I'm not always going to be in those patterns, and knowing the good that it did for my marriage, I'd pick it 100 times over.
I mean, in some point I will sound probably crazy, but I'm happy I experienced what I experienced, because now I know, like, how to talk, and noticing when somebody has actually really going through something, seeing them sitting very close, nobody, no phone, and they're just looking in one direction. It's sometimes a sign that maybe they need actually somebody to come up front and tell them, like, what's going on. Do you need talk with somebody? And sometimes that helps, even though they can call you, like, you know, nasty stuff. It's not because they want to attack you, but it's like respond like, who the hell are you to care what is my life? You know, like I was acting that way, that who are you to tell me what's going on? Who the hell are you that tell me that was...
Well, it's a defense mechanism, right? It's to push people out.
You know what? For many years, when some people have been bringing up that, well, you wanted to... I was cutting myself, they've been saying, because you wanted attention from other people. And I was saying, why you actually...
Please don't ever say that to anybody.
Don't, but actually, I'll respond to it. Now thinking, I needed that. I need it for the point that I need help from somebody, but not like, well, you've been cutting because you wanted attention. But it was more sense of saying that you needed some help, like you've been calling for help. It was your
cry for help.
Yes.
Which is totally different than just wanting attention.
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to mean, basically, that it was like more calling as a help, not like, oh, you did just to
it was
somebody.
You calling help, not knowing how to call for help.
Because I tried different ways of calling and nothing was success, and finally I was like, well, maybe that's one of the solutions. Yeah. And it was getting worse and worse to the point that I was sitting and I'm like, I can't, I don't have no energy, I don't have no power to deal with that anymore, or overdose with some, that was herb, I remember it was an herb syrup to relax muscle, but I drank an entire bottle. I was saying that it'll be over relaxing entire body, and it was to the point that I was sitting 20 minutes and looking at one spot and I couldn't move.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was running away of problems, and it was a lot at that point.
Everyone runs away some way.
And finally I just called my mom and tell her, you need to help me or I actually will do something.
Yeah.
So the reaction was that way, because she knew that it was a problem, but she didn't know which direction to go. I think she was afraid that it might be going wrong way. She tried her way of helping me. I'm not saying she wasn't, but she was, I think, more afraid to approaching that good way and just tell me, you cannot do that anymore. I'm your mom, etc., etc. Yeah. But she knew that I need some help. So finally, when we had a moment to talk and I was to the point like, I don't care anymore, I told her what's going on and what I might be doing. So she started to more like focusing like, okay, if she is calling or she's listening to this specific song, she knew that it's my trigger. Actually, there was like, she is calling for something, for help or something like that. So it was for many years. And when you brought the trigger, actually, it started to click in my head. Like, actually, I had a few of those.
Yeah.
So you see, talking with Otter, everybody talking in a different way. She brought trigger. I never even heard about it to put those two thoughts together. And now it's like, actually, I had those too.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone has triggers in life, whether it's like good or bad. I mean, anyone. Like, if you hear a song that, you know, reminds you of something really fantastic. Like, you know, Ryan and I have a song that we used to sing to each other when we were dating. And so when I hear that song, I know it's horrible. When I hear that song, it triggers happiness, and, you know, it's reminiscing about, you know, our college years when we dated. And so everyone has triggers. Yeah. But when your triggers lead to something really bad, that's when you gotta
I never thought about, like, the negative way, going way deeper into, like, depression, anxieties at that point. But, the good things, like, oh, yeah, of course, this song or this smell or something like that, it's the brain muscle memory that we have, of course. But, I know we're running a little bit with time, I know that, but we brought about how you deal with your anxiety, what was your symptoms, what your husband was doing for you, and Brian and Nicole. And we want to basically thank you guys for listening and watching. I'm very happy that you guys are watching more and more. I know it's a beginning, but, you know, everything needs to take step by step to create something. But what we want to tell, we are not therapists, we're not advising, we just wanted to tell you guys that if you see somebody, a family member, a friend, lover, husband, wife, whoever, who has a problem, who is dealing with depression, anxiety attacks, or even panic attacks, sit down with them, try to talk with them, even if they'll be pushing away, try to approach it no matter what, because that might save them life more than ignoring some symptoms. Even, like I said, even if they will be nasty, even if they will be pushing, trying to run away or something like that, like not running away as running away, I'm not coming back, but like going out, emotionally running away and don't want to talk. Sometimes it's better to push, sit down, and even yell at each other and talk about the problem instead of ignoring that, because it might save somebody's life. So if you see this problem, You can always find information on internet about the panic attack, anxiety attack, about the depression. Always contact with a therapist or a hotline that you can always find that. Sorry guys, don't have the full information with the phone numbers. If you're going to school, there you go. If you're going to school, talk with a therapist or even with the teacher or the principal. They need to help you because that's their role, to help kids or even adults. I know at work is different, and you know, bosses are different and everything else, but if you have somebody close to you that you're able to talk and they're able to help you with that, or even give you a phone number to the therapist, go and do it. It's not a shaming. It's not a shame even
really
for working
freeing.
and doing. Yes. I did that a few times when I was working. I'm not ashamed of talking with people about that. I never had a problem. And learn me, I'm really talkative person.
Yeah.
And I think on the beginning we started to talk about a little bit about ourselves. So you know, talking about what are you going through, and some people, unfortunately, they're assholes. They will use against you, and some people will understand that.
Most people are more understanding than you think.
Yes. But you can meet in life.
Sure. There's going to be some...
For young people who are watching that, you'll meet the good people and the bad people. So just remember, it's life. It happens. You'll meet those good friends. You'll meet those friends that you're going to lose contact after a while. It happens. That's life.
Yeah.
But like we said, if you guys need something, always call, always go, and always talk with somebody to avoid more suicide and more harming themselves or harming others.
Yeah, and can I add one
thing
sure.
in
there? Everything Anya said is right on point. I will add one thing that I just recognized in myself is if you are trying to help someone who has a mental issue, like if you are not the one with it and you're trying to help someone, do not step in and try to solve their problems, because this is not a problem that you can just solve, or like this isn't just something that you like say, okay, pray this verse and like it just magically goes away. Like the mind is a muscle, and it needs to be trained, and just like any other muscle in your body, just like with any kind of physical therapy, right? Like if you have a torn shoulder, and
I'll mention that in a second. Go
but
for
if
it,
you
Kel.
have like a torn shoulder, right, it's a muscle, and so you go to a physical therapist and you get it worked on, and you get, you know, help. You don't have someone saying, all right, pray this verse 10 times, and, you know, I'm not saying that faith healing doesn't happen. I'm just saying that God gave us the resources, like doctors who understand how he designed our body to help us, and that's a big deal. And I think that's where, I know the church has gone off the rails with mental health, but that's where specifically I think a lot of people lose it. So if you have someone who you're trying to help, don't just come in with a solution. Really just come in and sit with them and say that you see them and that you will help them find a solution. But don't come in and try to be their solution, because then it not only makes them feel like they can't do it on their own, which will trigger anxiety, but it also makes them feel like their problem isn't big. Like it makes them feel like their problem's small. Like if someone from the outside can just walk in and fix it magically, then it degrades what they're experiencing. So don't do that. Just come in, tell them that you see them, sit with them, and help them find help. It's a big deal.
It's the difference when somebody went through and somebody who never went through, and
Yeah.
they're still trying, but it's better to approach it a little bit different than people who experience. Like I had some people who, my mom actually, her coworkers many years ago had some suicide thoughts and wanted to do, or they've been cutting themselves. I knew their way of being, so I knew how I should talk with them, and sometimes it wasn't like very nice and soft. It was sometimes you needed to push them by, hey, don't be a dumbass, don't do it because this and that, and actually that helped. Like they
Not everyone is like that.
Not everybody reacts.
Not
fine. Everybody, but like I said, if you've been dealing with that and you know how to talk with others, that's a little bit different. If you never experienced something like that, it's better to sit with them and say, hey, let's find some help for you. I don't know what to do. I just want to be here for you right now. So that's a little bit different way. But like I said, don't take example from me, because I'm way different person. Every one of us is different.
Yeah.
The same as you. You'll be a different approaching. I'll be different approaching.
Yeah, please. I think if Ryan ever tried tough love with me, I would just cry. But for some people, it works. It does.
I mean, John with me, sometimes he's tough because he knows I am more like I need to get the kick.
Well, and that's the thing about sharing your experiences with a spouse, is that they will know how to handle you specifically, right? So John knows how to react to you, Ryan knows how to react to me, and it's so important to have someone like that.
But when I had that, meltdown that like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I talked with him through the phone, it wasn't like, typical sitting with each other and trying to, softly and then a little bit, no, you need to get your shit together and do it, which helps for me in some situations, but it was more understanding what was the cause, and he knew exactly that I want to listen to what is going on with him than talking what's going on with me, because I didn't want it to give him more, thoughts and thinking what's going on here, should I be worried and everything else, but that's the marriage going on. So, ran out of time.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, sorry for you, Kel. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. You just watched the typical life of a military wife. I just talked with my friend Kelly. If you guys have more ideas what kind of conversation you want me to go with some people, or what you want me to talk about, send me an email that it's down below, or comment down below too. Thank you, guys, and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.